Another concept that I want to get across to you is tax appraisal. You heard in that video, the guy was saying, how's it work that true house prices are flat or dropping, but we are still paying the same, if not more, in local taxes? Comes down to tax appraisal. Okay? The process is critical, and it's done differently by state. So when we come back in the second half of the class, we'll get into the details of how it's done in West Virginia, how it's done in Pennsylvania, and how it's done in Ohio. But it is critical. I want to take one more step before I share that with you. And by and large, across the country, market value is used as a basis for determining the appraisal price of the home. Market value. So, what that means is that if you lived in a standard development and the house to your left was $100,000 and the house to your right was $100,000, and your house looked like those two houses, guess what your house would be appraised at? $100,000, okay? Unless you added a swimming pool, if you added some things that your neighbors didn't have, okay? I own a condo in Florida, and Florida, unlike West Virginia and Ohio, they assess their property annually. Pennsylvania assesses their property annually as well. What does this mean? Well, what this means is, you know, that guy was talking about the property values were going down. Why isn't the property tax going down? Well, guess what? That property in Florida, it did. It went down about 20 to 30% over the past 2 years because they are using current market values to assess. Now, how schools are handling that is beyond me. We have a whole different setup that allows for some adjustments in the market value of houses in West Virginia and in Ohio. But it's definitely got to be hurting those schools in Florida because my payment dropped about $300 or $400, which was all tax money monthly. So that just gives you a clue as to the importance of the appraisal. Obviously, an individual comes in and or does a site inspection of the property and takes a look at how the sale of properties have gone that are like this. And you can even become certified as an appraiser. Another job for you, Todd. You can become a tax appraiser. Of course, they're looking at those properties, looking at those houses, and making judgments based on the sales of properties within the 6-month or a year period to start to determine how that appraiser is going to.
Homeowners all across the country are seeing their property taxes rise while local governments are scrambling to cover their budget deficits. Meanwhile, property values are dropping, and tonight, outraged homeowners are launching protests. Kenny Pilgrim has our report.
In Iowa, a public tax hearing turned into chaos as citizens were thrown out of the House chamber for disrupting the proceedings. Eyewitnesses say the booing and shouting went on for 10 minutes. According to public watchdog group Iowans for Tax Relief, changes in the state government budget will result in more than $100 million more in property taxes at the local level. Across the country, many local governments overspent in boom times.
Now those municipalities are finding that higher taxes are necessary to catch up with the high spending that they already put in place.
In Hoboken, New Jersey, a massive property tax hike prompted one realtor to put up this sign. urging residents to cut their taxes by 47% by moving out of the area. In Montgomery County, Ohio, thousands of property owners lined up to meet the deadline to challenge property tax hikes on their homes, on average up 14%. The value of the homes in the county was reassessed in January 2008, but since then the property values in Ohio have fallen by 13%, according to Realty Track.
Values that were probably good values in January of '08 are now somewhat below that, and so people are coming in and filing complaints.
I'm disappointed that they wouldn't use more common sense in how they evaluated properties.
It's now up to the Montgomery County Board of Revision, all three of them, to review the complaints. The real question is why taxes would go up when home prices are falling. Nationally, home prices are down 19%. Kitty Pilgrim, CNN, New York.
Bringing us to
I would say to that gentleman, you know, you need to take a course in school finance, because the reason that happened is Ohio uses a triennial and a 6-year appraisal process. So when his property was appraised in 2008, we were at the upside of the housing market, and then we saw properties go down, but yet they were still using that 2008 appraisal.
What's the reason the difference in states are so spread out on when they're evaluating their property? Appraising it. Like, well, you said Florida was 1 year.
You know, all of these decisions, Andy, are local, state decisions. It comes down to state decisions. And of course, it comes down to state politicians who make the laws in order for these types of things to take place. So, you know, when you start talking about local property tax, you know, I'm giving you the generic view at this particular point. We're going to put a finer spin on it as to how it really relates to the 3 states that we have covered here. But by and large, lots of similarities, but there are differences between them. Why Florida chose that? Well, here's why. I'm guessing. You know, if you did a historical thing with Florida properties, what would you see going on from year to year?
Right. Right.
Going up, and they wanted to capitalize on it. They didn't realize that we're going to be seeing this housing bust like we did, and so I'm guessing that's why. And you know, on the other hand, in general, if you take a look at our area, we didn't see quite the lag in home prices as Florida, Arizona, states like that. Okay? Mostly because those prices were overinflated in the first place, and so they were kind of being adjusted. Okay, but it all comes down to state decisions. Okay. He mentioned people are complaining about their prices, or excuse me, about their appraisals, about their tax bills. Well, generically, here's the process that you go through in order to challenge your tax bill. Okay. First of all, of course, there's the assessment. Okay. Then there's a notice. Here's what you're going to pay. Here's what you have to pay. Okay. And within that, you have the opportunity to appeal. And it depends on, once again, the local. In Ohio, we appeal our taxes to the county auditor, who happens to be in charge of the appraisal process. Okay? That's different than in Pennsylvania. And in fact, in learning about the Pennsylvania process, basically the report was it's not a very clean process. Okay? Probably for many reasons. After the individuals have filed their appeal, there's going to be an examination. There's going to be a look-see as to whether or not it was misapplied, if the values were misapplied, or if they can provide other information that says that their property should not be assessed at the value that is assessed. And finally, there's going to be a determination. And, you know, by and large, people do win these cases. And of course, when they win these cases, the impact on schools is the schools receive less money. Okay? I don't know what the percentage is of people who actually file complaints, and I don't know the number of people that win those complaints. But my guess is that there's probably 10–15% that probably file, and there's probably 5% or so that actually do win the appeals.
I believe in Ohio there's only a certain time of year that you're allowed to do this.
Yes,
It's not any time of year.
yes,
So if you purchase a house in November, for instance, my husband and I purchased a house in November, we couldn't apply for this until like the following, you had to live there a year, then you have to wait till the following January or something like that to apply. It has to be presented to a board,
yes,
and then it has to be voted on, and it's
Yeah.
very difficult.
yes. And by the way, your experience is similar to other states as well. They don't make it easy. It's not, it's intended to be challenging, okay? It's intended to be challenging because obviously they want very few challenges. Okay?